But the build up to it, you can understand how we were very nervous because it felt almost like there was a fine line before it was released, but it was like, oh, but what we was kind of putting obstacles in our own way. But actually it was such a great thing to do because it's opened up so many different conversations.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Yarn Over podcast. I am Sarah-Jayne, your host, and today I am joined by Nicola, who is on Team BC, and we're going to be talking about crochet on the high street and all of the subjects that come up within that. So grab a cup of tea and let's get stuck in. I wanted to take a moment to introduce my brand new book, You Can Crochet with Bella Coco. This is a clear and simple course for the beginner and contains everything that you need to get started as an absolute beginner. It also serves as a handy reference guide for those who just want a quick catch up to brush up on their techniques. And it contains 12 gorgeous crochet patterns for you to complete. You Can Crochet with Bella Coco is available now. So one of the reasons why we want to talk about this, and it came up really when we were working on the Not the High Street bag. I remember back in, oh my gosh, I forget the days. Not the days.
Dates.
2020,
wasn't it?
Yeah, I forget the years. The last few years have just mingled, haven't they? But it was a couple of years ago, maybe summer last year, so summer 2021. I saw a bag which was on Urban Outfitters, and I believe it was for about $19.99?
Yeah, it was around that price, really cheap.
Yeah, it was ridiculously cheap. I've done a whole blog post on it if you want to have a look at that. I'll leave it in the show notes. But basically I saw this bag and I thought, how can that possibly be £19.99? Because as we all know, you cannot create crochet on a machine, or maybe some people don't know that, but you can't create crochet on a machine. Knitting you can, yes, but crochet is handmade. So somebody has actually sat down and crocheted that bag. So it got me to thinking, I wonder how long it would take me to make that and what would be the cost involved in it. So in this blog post, which is on the Bella Coco Crochet website, it goes through all of that. It goes through how long it took me to make the squares, what materials I used, how much that cost altogether. And then it also spoke about it was kind of two parts to a blog post really. It was highlighting the fact that crochet, when it's on the high street, is produced very, very cheaply in terms of it's not, they're not paying workers what they should, which we'll go into a little bit more later. But then also highlighting the value of our time as creators. So it then also talked about all the production side of things, so putting the pattern together and having it tech edited and having it photographed, which is what Nicola does mainly here at BC, although not so much recently. No. So it's a really interesting post if you want to go and have a read of it. But what did you take from that blog post?
So I was fairly new at Bella Coco at this point when this concept was happening behind the scenes, and it got me thinking, actually one of the key areas that need highlighting is the difference between crochet and knitting. Because funnily enough, we was actually talking about something that involved a goat, but it has got a point. We was talking about a goat eating a pom-pom off one of my bags many years ago, and the bag happened to be knitted or crochet, and I think I stopped myself in my tracks and said, actually, I don't know if that bag was knitted or crocheted, and it was a high street purchase. And I think that is one of the biggest issues, that people see a beautiful yarn garment or accessory and buy it, and especially if it's cheap, and they don't actually know how that's been produced. Okay, if it's knitted, then it's more than likely been done on a machine, which is a completely different story. But if it's been hand crocheted, then there's an issue within that. So I think for me, I started to learn and still learning the difference between a crocheted item and a knitted item. And I know it's to do with sort of like how it's interlinked and locked, but still to the eye, I'd really have to study and probably ask for a second opinion if I wanted to be sure if I was purchasing something on the high street, has that been knitted or has it been crocheted? So then whilst I was learning about this was during, we were still in lockdown at this point, weren't we? We was
like
all still
semi-lockdown.
Yeah, working from home. And I started pattern testing for a couple of designers making garments, and from that point I realised, wow, just how much work goes into it. I know in a project it takes quite a long time. I see patterns or ideas evolve into getting yarn, patterns, it being filmed, it being photographed. I was aware of that process, but there was still a level of ignorance as just to how much work goes into it. At this point, I don't think I'd ever written a crochet pattern. So when I was pattern testing, I got this printable PDF that was like 15, 16 plus pages long. And then I started to learn about grading and doing your gauge swatch and then making it, and then having to send all the information back to the designer and then proofreading. Like, it was a whole journey for one item. And I just think, who's doing that for these high street garments? How much are they being paid, and how much time is that taking, and is that being reflected in the cost of what they're being sold for? Which we can confidently say absolutely not, because to our horror, we've been gathering research all this summer. Every time we've seen something on the high street or online shopping, we've been taking screenshots of it, and one, they're already cheap, but then secondly, most of that stuff went into the sale at like shockingly low prices. You're talking like £5-6. We think we saw something on the high street that was around £3 mark, I think, the cover up, without naming any names. So from coming into Bella Coco and working more closely with the team, and then pattern testing myself to writing my own pattern, I guess I've learnt so much just from that Not the High Street bag. And we both go off on tangents of conversation about this, don't we? And this blog post really is just to highlight those issues.
Yeah. I think really the blog post was mainly to kind of encourage people not to buy crochet on the high street. But then it just kind of untangled all of these different conversation pieces, didn't it? About, you know, valuing people's time and their art, whether or not it be somebody working in a factory and making these things. You know, if you're selling something for $19.99, how long has it taken I mean, granted, these people in the factories might be very, very quick at crochet, much quicker than I am, but still, you know, after it's been made, after you think about the cost of the material, after you think about the cost of, you know, these factories shipping over to the companies, how much are these people actually being paid? How much is that worker being paid for that one item that's selling for $19.99? When the cost of the yarn, I mean, I can't remember that. I probably should have looked at this before we did this podcast, but the cost of the yarn was much more than that on its own, just the yarn. And it just really does make you think, you know, how they can produce these at such low prices. And also as well, I meant to say this to you the other day, I had a really close look, because I don't know if anybody else does this, but when I see crochet anywhere, like on the high street or where, I'll literally go and have a look, like really closely, and like inspect it. And on the back of this crochet, it was a children's granny square. The top was granny square, the bottom was material. It was a dress, but on the back of the granny squares, they'd sewn the yarn So from the front it didn't look any different, but on the back
Okay.
it had stitches in, and it was
What, stitched over the crochet?
stitched the stitches together, and I assume that is for longevity, I guess, so that it doesn't stretch or pull or I don't know.
Strengthen it, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I assumed it was for strength. It wasn't just like a straight stitch. It's quite intricate. That definitely would have been done on a machine. So yeah, it was bizarre. But yeah, to then add that into the mix,
Yeah.
you know, it baffles my mind. My mind boggles at how they can produce these things so cheaply. But then when you also think about from a creator and these people who are designing projects as well and putting all of their efforts into creating patterns so that other people can make them, and to be having their designs stolen.
It undermines them in the whole process and how it can be sold on the high street. But then also when you see something, doing a little bit more research, because we've obviously involved in the crochet community, someone watching this might not really know a great deal about crochet, but there's actually people who we follow whose designs have been stolen this summer and put on really cheap high street websites. So that almost opens up another, you know, I was saying with the Not the High Street blog post, it really did bring so much more than what the blog post was about to the forefront. And we've branched off in so many different conversations from that, and that being one of them. You know, that was just only hitting the surface really with the Not the High Street bag.
Yeah.
Since that blog post's gone live and that pattern's gone live, it's kind of crept into conversation most weeks about just everything to do with crochet being manufactured in the way it is and being sold so cheaply. And interesting, when you put it in on Google, I mean, I've not found it. If anyone else can find articles, then please ping them our way. But the articles I can find, they're very few and far in between, but they're all like 2020, 2021. So it's only in recent, like the last 2 years, that people are really starting to think, oh, okay, maybe this isn't right, which is just absolutely mind-boggling because crochet's been around how long? I mean, maybe that's to do with the fashion, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's 100% to do with the fashion, because this summer 2022, it was just everywhere.
Absolutely everywhere.
And I guess we could find this out because I'm sure they're working on summer 2023 fashion at the moment, whether it's going to come back again. I think it will, personally.
Yeah.
It's just interesting how it's come. It was just everywhere this summer, absolutely everywhere. From accessories to clothing. The clothing was just insane, wasn't it?
But even the effect of the print, I saw on some websites that they'd taken a granny square with the links and made it into almost like a screen print, so the fabric was printed to look like crochet, which I just thought was crazy. That's better than mass produced, but obviously the aesthetic of crochet is very sought after at the moment. Like, we can understand why. We've appreciated crochet far longer, but
I actually remember buying for holiday a cover up, and it had crochet on it. It just had a small bit of crochet around the top, and I was like, oh, crochet, like, it's nice to see crochet in the high street. But I hadn't actually at that point thought, oh my gosh, what is the impact of this, until obviously getting more and more into designing and producing and all of that. So yeah, it's just insane, isn't it?
Yeah, we also noticed this year as well, there's been lots of higher end brands selling crochet. Obviously at the right price, but there's such a contrast, isn't there?
Well, you say that, yes. They're selling them at the prices you would like or expect them to sell at, but still, how much is that worker getting for that work?
Exactly, and how many of that, say, bag, for example, has been made.
Yeah. Just because they're selling for a higher price point doesn't mean that the worker is getting that. It just might mean that they're making more profit.
Which brings us on to, actually, During the first Not the High Street, and I say the first because we do have some news later on, but I won't reveal just yet. During the first Not the High Street blog post and pattern, for the first 6 months, we donated the profits for the pattern to a charity.
I think it was actually 3 months. But
was it 3 months?
It was extended to 6 months.
Yeah.
But yeah, we decided that we wanted to donate to a charity, and the charity that we found was
Labour Behind the Label, which is, I'm glad I said that right, because I get it wrong sometimes. I say it the other way around, which makes no sense.
I didn't tell you to say it just to slip you up.
Oh, did you not? No, it was pressure. It was like, dum, lights are on me.
No,
say
it's
it properly.
I felt like I interrupted you, so I wanted to let you give the glory.
But you gave me the most difficult sentence to say. I think I said it right. If I didn't, I apologise, and we will correct that in the show notes. But we found that charity, and it kind of just covered what felt like the whole kind of textile industry, UK and beyond, with people working. Because I think people also don't realise that the textile industry, although it has depleted over the years, if you watch Bella Coco, the studio's The Next Chapter, we're actually situated opposite an old lace mill. So although it's depleted, which are now apartments, so although it has depleted in the UK, there are still quite a large amount of factories that produce textiles in the UK, and that supports UK and beyond, doesn't it? And acts as an advocate, I guess, and a voice for people who have been mistreated in that industry. So although, like Sarah-Jayne was just saying, we have found higher price pointed items, crochet items from high-end designers, there's no proof that they have been made ethically. So it would be quite nice for companies who are selling crochet to be more explicit where it's been made and give us a little bit more of an insight, rather than what it felt like to us, that everybody was jumping on the bandwagon of crochet and just pushing it out all over the, like, we all get, you've got to make money, you've got to follow the trends, but there comes a point where is a trend worth mistreating a human being at the end of the day.
So that was like part of the pattern, wasn't it? And then the reason why we didn't decide to donate all of the profits to the charity was because we also wanted to honour the side of it of as a creator and the work that's gone into it. You know, there was time and money that went into creating that pattern, and so I was kind of in a place of, well, I don't really want to be making a profit on something that I've kind of essentially replicated because it had a story behind it. I wanted to be able to sort of give to charity at the same time as honouring the creative. It was a tricky one, wasn't it? And we had this whole conversation about it, and that's how we felt like was the best way to proceed with it.
Well, it actually was being delayed because I was so anxious and nervous about it going out, because we wanted the message to come across properly. We didn't want it to be like, oh, now we're going to make money off this trend. It wasn't meant down that route, and I don't think people took it that way.
I don't think they did at all.
But the build up to it, you can understand how we were very nervous, because it felt almost like there was a fine line before it was released, but it was like, oh, but what we was kind of putting obstacles in our own way. But actually it was such a great thing to do, because it's opened up so many different conversations, and it's helped us learn as well, hasn't it? I mean, we're still learning. We've been looking at the charity's website today and looking at working conditions, and we're always looking out for crochet on the high street and taking screenshots.
Have you seen my brand new pattern, the patchwork blanket? This project is perfect if you want to use up some of your yarn in your stash, explore new stitches and techniques, and also learn new skills. So many people have picked up this pattern already and begun their projects, and if you want to too, you can head across to bellacococrochet.com/patchwork-blanket. That's bellacococrochet.com/patchwork-blanket. So obviously we spoke a little bit about Not the High Street part 2.
Mm-hmm.
So this is really exciting. We actually did plan on doing this a little while ago, didn't we? This was supposed to be a summer project, was it not? Oops.
Yeah, it was like summer and then autumn, and then we was like, actually, so much came up though this back end of the year, didn't it? With the book and the patchwork blanket and just everything else that comes up, which kind of strengthens our point in terms of just how long these things take, like the design process, the marketing, the planning as a whole, the pattern writing, you name it, like everything is just so time consuming. And then when you've got things in the way.
Yeah, well, we've actually just been working on something, and with the cost of yarn and making the projects, what did it work out as? 3,000?
Just the yarn and having it made up, was £3,000.
£3,000. That's gone into a project. And I know that there will be some people like, oh, is this not free?
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of cost £3,000 to produce. So, we're going to need to make that back, because Bella Coco Crochet is now a business. I employ people. I need to pay their wages. I need I need to keep my children fed and all of that. So I guess that's another talking point, isn't it? Is, see what I mean? This just brings up so many talking points, but there is so much free content out there. I have hundreds of free tutorials and free patterns and things on the website. And I kind of get that there are some people who do look for the free, but I do think there's a fine line of having something for free and then being angry that something's not free.
Yeah. Because it also puts pressure on, there's so many talented crochet designers out there, and it's actually quite heartbreaking when they release a pattern and then when you chat to them it's maybe not sold as well, because there's that pressure that people do want it for free or they want it for really cheap. So it's understanding what goes into that. For any pattern, it will have been written for a start, but then the samples would have been made, frogged to get it right. Then it would have been tech edited, then it would have been pattern tested, and then photographed and sometimes filmed, and then made into a beautiful PDF. And all
then
of
hosted
that
on a website, which then has charges to sell that PDF.
Yeah. Not to mention all the free time that's already gone into it, marketing it on Instagram, and pushing that out how many times needed, setting up newsletters to push it out. All of that is done on the designer's free time, really, mostly in the evenings, in between full-time jobs. And I guess it's kind of almost the lack of understanding of that when people act shocked when something costs money, when they want it for free. So hopefully this podcast might be a little bit of a voice to those designers as well, and to support them. If we can convert, say, 10 people who would 10 people who would normally look for free content go and purchase 10 patterns from a designer, then I guess this podcast has served its purpose. Or say another 10 people looking into the whole manufacturing of crochet or the textile industry. It's chipping away, isn't it? Like you say, every time we start a conversation, it dominoes onto so many different topics. It's hard to kind of cover all grounds. This is almost like just an intro, I guess, to what will be coming on the blog and what more topics of conversation.
I mean, we if people want to hear more about a particular part of this broader conversation, then we can absolutely do future podcasts on this,
Yeah.
and even invite more guests in to chat about it and things. But I was just thinking then, even when we were talking about designers offering free patterns, which they absolutely do not have to do.
Yeah.
If you want to produce a free pattern, please, by all means, go ahead. Free patterns can be very good at getting eyeballs on your things, and then, you know, you can have...
I'm sorry.
So, yes.
Eyeballs on you what?
Nicola, that was a very serious part of the chat. This,
so
everybody,
sorry. I'm
is
so
exactly what
sorry.
it's like working in the studios, because I'm not editing that out. Eyeballs on their projects.
It's like, eyeballs on your things. I can't believe you just said that.
Oh dear me.
Just go,
Compose yourself. Eyeballs on their projects, and then they can have paid patterns and you know, PDFs, whatever they want to do. But it's absolutely okay to charge for your work. You are worth so much, and I think as creatives, often people feel like they're not worthy of being paid for what they're producing, and that like pains me so much. I've been there. I still am there at, you know, some point. You know, we have conversations over and over about how much things we should charge for things. But yeah, there's that conversation. Then there's also the people who make physical things, so whether it's hats or scarves or amigurumis or whatever, you also have the right to charge for your work.
Yeah.
You do not work for free. You know, if you went into the shop and picked something up and walked out with it, you'd be chased.
Yeah.
You know, why is it any different? People need to be paying for your work, and it's absolutely okay to charge for it. I'm so passionate about this because I just see people undervaluing themselves so much, and it's really, really sad to see. So yeah, if you're sat here thinking, I don't think I should be, you know, charging for what I do, you do. You absolutely do.
Reach out, tell us in the comments if you're one of those people who don't charge or undercharge, and like let us know how you feel and what holds you back from that as well, because I think that would be really interesting to collate and sort of like share with others as well, how indie designers and small businesses feel about pricing up and charging. I know there are other resources online and stuff, but also when you go on Etsy and you see handmade items ready to be sold and people put them in the sale, and it's like, I wonder what's made them reduce that beautiful handcrafted piece of work when it was already not enough money to begin with. It's crazy, isn't it?
Or either if you're watching and you're just a crochet hobbyist, you don't you know, you don't sell patterns, you don't sell your work. Have you ever looked at a pattern and thought, oh, I'm not paying that, that's a bit expensive. Or I wouldn't pay that for that blanket. If you have, that's absolutely fine. I'm sure at some point I have also done that, because I haven't understood everything that goes into creating that that piece. We're open. The conversation is open. The comments are open. Let's just get that conversation flowing. And like help each other break down different points of views. Thought you was going to follow up from that. So, yes, we do have a project that, in a roundabout way. Did we even finish talking about this project?
We went off on another tangent.
We did. We do this a lot. But we do have another project coming next year, which is really exciting. So stay tuned for that. So again, that will be another project where it will have the donation to charity. I think we were lucky last year because the Not the High Street bag just absolutely blew up, didn't it? It was everywhere.
Yeah, but it was so nice to know that people were making those bags, whether they're using for shoppers or for beach bags or just general day-to-day bags, and not going and getting a bag from the high street for like £5 or something.
One of my favourite things was seeing I think I saw a few of the comments actually, where somebody had made it and they're like, oh, my daughter wants me to make it for like one for her and like her friends as well. I'm like, I love that.
Yeah.
I just love that crochet is gradually getting to the younger and younger generation, isn't it? Yeah.
Which is all the more reason why we want to share how crochet is made and knowing, and to, you know, raise awareness in regards to the low price points that are out there on the high street as well, because younger people are learning how to crochet, but then if they've got crochet things and they show their friends, you know, they can then teach them how to, you know, how it's made, or the fact that there's no crochet machine. I mean, hands up, I didn't know that until I started working here, and I've worked with you for like years taking photos, but it never occurred to me that crochet can't be done on a machine.
Yeah. Another thing, I mean, it's slightly not relevant, but it is. It really grinds my gears when these websites say, oh, crochet jumper. You're like, that's not crochet.
Yeah, they're even getting it wrong.
Well, I think that what they're doing is they're using the word crochet because it's popular and saying that's a crochet jumper or a crochet top because crochet is popular.
Because it's trending, and it's different. Maybe that's the blog post in itself, comparing crochet and knitted stitches that are similar. I would learn so much from that.
We should call it Not the Knit Jumper.
Yes.
Don't steal that, anybody.
No, that's copyright.
Yeah, we've got that. We've claimed that one. So, I really hope that you have enjoyed this podcast and our little ramblings of, well, I guess it's more of behind the scenes of what our conversations are about in the studios.
It's been done very differently to the other ones.
Yes, yeah. But it's a huge topic. So many things within that topic, but we're open for more conversations about it. So leave us a comment. Or, you know, if you're listening, come and leave us a comment on social media. We'd love to hear your point of view. But thank you so much for watching. And thank you, Nicola, for joining me today.
You're very welcome. Hope I've been help more than a hindrance. And we're very excited about releasing Not the High Street Part 2.
Yes.
Tell them it's wearable.
Yes.
Oh. Am I doing it?
Yeah, go on then.
Yeah, so Not the High Street Part 2. We wanted to do something that people have been asking for, but we wanted there to be a message behind it. And we thought, what better way to follow on with the fact that crochet's exploded this summer on the high street. We're going to be doing a wearable item. But as you can imagine, we'll tell you all about this in the blog post. We are figuring out the pattern at the moment. We have got samples made, but then we also need to grade it because we want the pattern to be size inclusive, and there will also be video tutorials alongside that as well as a purchasable PDF pattern. Yay. So it's going to be even bigger and better than the first one, with more information about how it's gone from the idea to what it is now, ready to sell to you guys. So we're very excited about you seeing that, and it's based on a very popular design that's been circulated on the internet again. So very similar concept to Not
Harry
Street,
Styles. People are
oh no, it's
not Harry
gosh.
Styles.
I'm probably gonna start something now. We just don't have the time to recreate that. Don't bombard us. It's already 6 months late. This project is it's not Harry Styles cardigan.
Yeah.
Sorry guys.
Yeah. Or maybe
No.
I'm joking. We cannot put any more projects.
That's a royal way because you're the one who always adds to the jobs list. I'm tick 3 things off, you add 10.
Yeah, sorry. It's the worst thing because I'll go, I've got an idea. And everyone goes, no, no,
I like
not again.
try and escape out the window.
You know, the life of creatives, hey.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for listening. If you're listening via podcast or watching, if you're watching on YouTube, I can't wait to see you for the next episode.